Hello, this is episode 1 of Type 1 Talk. Type 1 Talk is a resource that discusses major points of what it is like to live with type 1 diabetes. Today we will be talking about what it is like being diagnosed with type 1 diabetes. Do you want to start talking about how you got diagnosed with type 1 diabetes?
I can start.
Okay.
Okay, so I was diagnosed May 25th, 2018. I was actually just going in for sixth grade shots, and they made me do a urinalysis, and they kind of tested that, and they found out ketones. So they wanted me to stay a little bit longer, and they got the um Lancet out and everything. And this thing, they said like it has been used in like 30 years. So they were trying to find out batteries. I was kind of confused, didn't know what was going on. Obviously, I had no really idea about type 1 diabetes, what it was at all. I knew my uncle had it, but that was pretty much it. And I also knew that there were two types. But they finally got that worked, and they tested my blood sugar, and it was actually 260. And so then they called the hospital and everything there. So they got me like in the emergency room and everything, and we drove there. It wasn't too far away. And they tested me again, still 250. Kept me overnight and everything, and really trying to monitor me. And they found out that my blood sugar came down on its own. That's kind of like the gist of it, how I got diagnosed and everything. But later on, we got set up with an endocrinologist through that hospital and everything. And this was all within like the first couple months of getting diagnosed and everything. And I was pretty much fine. I was just managing my blood sugar through, of course, good eating and exercise. And that was pretty much how the endocrinologist at the time told us how to handle everything. Because like it was still very early stages. My pancreas was still working, so I was like, they call it like pre-diagnosed, like pre-diabetes.
Mhm.
But that kind of like was happening everything. And later on, under a couple sessions, and there were kind of some like red flags I was starting to notice, but I kind of brushed off. Some of those was when I got the Dexcom for the first time. She asked if it was a live reading. That kind of concerned me because she has other patients who probably have Dexcom, and I'm like, she was one who specifically asked, so I'm kind of like confused, like, hmm, you should kind of know this, but I brushed it off. And then we kind of got set up with TrialNet, which is basically like getting information for diabetes, getting more information through blood work and blood labs before you ever take insulin. So I didn't take any insulin at this time. So I was, my parents signed me up for that. I did not very much want to do it, but I was fine. And someone from there hooked me up with my now current endocrinologist because they work together for this. So he wanted to have a meeting with me when I was still my other endocrinologist. He wanted to have a meeting with me because like it was like such early stages. Like he literally called my dad and he was like, "Hey, come on, want to kind of discuss this?" And my dad kind of set up the meeting for us all to kind of go in there. And that exact day, he put me on long acting insulin. And he wasn't even my endocrinologist at the time. So like, we're like, perfect, great, good, cool, Um, and then we went back and we're like, next appointment for my endocrinologist at the time. I don't know how to like say this, but she was asking like at the end of the meeting, like, do you have any concerns? And I brought concerns about my blood sugar going to be in the 300s. It never happened yet, but it was just something I was relatively worried about. And I feel like she's not a therapist or anything. She's not supposed to kind of console you, but she is. But what she says, oh, I have patients who go in the 300s all the time. I have patients who are in the 300s all the time. That I'm like, okay, I know it's not like, it happens. But she did nothing to kind of console me on my worries. And again, she's not a therapist. She's not supposed to like, oh, it's gonna be okay. But she is my doctor. She's
Yeah.
supposed to teach me, like, we're gonna put some plans in place. So, like, let's say if you do, these are some steps you can take to get down. or these are some things you can do more to prevent it from ever happening.
Did she give you insulin? Because that's a good way to get your blood sugar down.
No, she never did. Never. She said, "Oh, you're fine. You don't need it yet." Um, a month later, we kind of decided, okay, we're just going to talk to this other one because you're kind of giving us some like weird red flags. And the endocrinologist, when we went there, when I got the one at the insulin, he did though say, like, if you go into the 200s, like a half unit of insulin, wait a certain amount of minutes, and just kind of go after a little bit in like half unit increments until you come down. And at that point, you're going to be on insulin for the rest of your life.
Mhm.
So that's fine. But a month after the meeting with my old endocrinologist, I went to like 250. So because the other one who worked with TrialNet, he decided we did what he said because the other one, she said really to do nothing, just wait it out. So we did the half units, and from that point, I was on insulin for the rest of my life. And that was the point where we just decided to switch because she was not helping us at all. She was doing more harm than good in the long run. And we met her one time. We saw her at this diabetes event outside. We said hi, we're our last name, we're the whatever. And she's like, "Oh, you guys." It's like, yeah, you clearly do not remember us. And I get she has a lot of patience, but after you go there with someone for like a couple times, like you should kind of know, like, have an idea at least of what your patient's last name is.
Yeah.
You have a little idea. Nothing. Nothing, not a clue. And we one time saw our when we switched, we saw the current one, his partner, like his like work partner, outside of it at another diabetes event. She saw us and walked up to us and said hi. So there's two completely interactions, two completely different like education levels and levels of professionalism with that. And I mean, my blood sugars have been amazing ever since I switched. Not my blood sugars weren't good when I was with my other one, but I was just so worried with her. And she did
Mhm.
nothing to really like be like, these are plans we can put in place. But my current one, we can reach out to him and he'll be like, okay, yeah, you should do this. Like work with like set up the people he works with and be like, yeah, you can just do this. Oh, your blood sugar is a little more higher over time, and it's like you have to do a little insulin, little bits of insulin to get you down. Let's raise your basal by so points and let's wait and see if this works. Or you're going low, let's adjust it. You're going high when you eat, let's adjust this insulin to carb ratio. And it's just such a better line of communication that is going on. So I
Yeah.
think with diabetes care or just in general, with diabetes like stories and everything, you should always pay attention to kind of red flags and just know you're not alone. And if you think something's up, really think about it. Don't just trust going blind. Do research.
Especially when you're first diagnosed, like, you
Oh
don't
yeah.
know much, and you're gonna be worried, and your concerns sound like very legitimate concerns, like,
Mhm.
high blood sugars cause, like, lots of long-term damage that, like, is not, like,
Yeah.
reversible, so
But the good thing though, I think when I was diagnosed, my A1C was like 6.
that's actually really good.
I know, I was diagnosed pretty early. Um, I was diagnosed in what was called the honeymoon phase.
Yeah.
We didn't know this with my older one. She's like, "Oh, you guys have, like, pre-diabetes or whatever." I'm like, "Now I actually know the name of it." And it's like, maybe you don't know the name of it, but you're not explaining what is happening to a patient well. And I get, like, you don't have patients that are diagnosed this early. It's like, it happens, but you mostly see people getting diagnosed later on when they start to have, like, having to go to the bathroom all the time, drinking so much water and everything. And of course, now having diabetes for 4 years, I can look back on those times and be like, wow, these are times I probably had a high blood sugar. But
Mhm.
I remember distinctively feeling low. Like, I always felt, like, drained of energy, like, you cannot describe the feeling of low, but I was, like, felt, like, drained of energy, and then I ate something and all of a sudden I'm like, "That was definitely a low blood sugar."
Yeah. It's so strange the first time you have a low blood sugar because you, like, don't
Oh,
know
yeah.
what it feels like yet. So, yeah. So
Yeah.
how long did your honeymoon or pre-diabetes phase last?
I was diagnosed in May. I got put on long the was in May. So, a little bit less than a year,
Mhm.
but of course, even when you're technically like normal people are like diagnosed around the time where they do have this mission, like weight loss or anything, their pancreas is still kind of working.
Yeah.
It's still shutting down. And we know that now.
Yeah.
Um, but like I was over time, my insulin has needed to increase because of it. But I got put on Dexcom in November, and that's like when we switched because we got
Mhm.
diagnosed in May and we switched endocrinologists that year in November. So I would say the first time I ever had to take short acting insulin was around very late December, I
So
would say,
that
because
was
I
a pretty long
remember,
stretch.
yeah, it was quite a long time, but I remember, oh man, it felt like forever having to go to the nurse to take insulin all the time in 6th grade, but I didn't really need it that
Mhm.
much. So I would say like couple months, really, like 7, 6 months within that time.
Yeah. My story's a bit different. So, how I figured out I got diagnosed with type 1 is I was 6 years old when I got diagnosed,
That's
and
young.
yeah, and I lost about, like, 10 pounds in 2 weeks, and my, like, hair was falling out. So, I mean, as any parent would realize, like, your child's not well. So they took me to the doctor, and I did a urine test, and they checked my blood sugar, and it was, like, somewhere in the 400s, and they realized that, you know, she's diabetic, there's something wrong. And I live actually in a really small area. So there wasn't like a hospital I could go to. So we had to drive about 2 hours to a hospital and then get treated. And I ended up in the hospital for about 3 days, maybe 4. And I like went on insulin like immediately. I was on long acting and short acting insulin almost immediately. I was still in my honeymoon phase. It only lasted about a year. So I was on very small doses, but I was on insulin right away. And, like you, I didn't know, like, that type 1 was a thing before. Like, I had an uncle who had type 1, but I was 6, like, it wasn't gonna be on my radar. So, yeah. And I also when I first got diagnosed, I was told I was sick. So, in the concept of, like, my 6-year-old mind, like, when you're sick, you take medicine and you get better. I it wasn't until, like, a few months later that I realized I wasn't gonna get better, you know? So, I think that is very interesting that, like, when you were diagnosed, you didn't go on insulin right away because I don't know, like, I just went on insulin right away. So, it was just
Yeah, then again, like, you were in, like, the 400s, I was only
Mhm.
in the 200s, and they saw, like, I was coming down pretty I don't wanna say quickly, but, like, fast enough where they were, like, realizing, like, she doesn't need insulin right now.
Yeah.
And eventually, when I got discharged, I was, like, 92. And I hear stories, like, people in the hospital for, like, a week, I'm like, I was only in there for, like, 2 days,
Yeah.
really. What felt like 2 days. It's probably, like, 2 days and, like, 5 hours, which I mean, like, to think because right before I went to the doctor's office, I had, like, a cup of fruit and, like, a Gatorade, like, a regular Gatorade, And to think that only raised my blood sugar to 260 is, first of all, crazy. Second of all, I'm jealous. Can I go back to that time, please? But it's like, if I never had any of that, I probably never would have like found out that I had diabetes at it.
Yeah.
It's like just like the luckiness, the sheer like the pure luck that happened that day. Was it traumatizing? Yes. I remember we were calling my dad and to get in the car. Mom was like, "Yeah, we gotta go to the hospital," and I was just bawling my eyes out. No one was telling me what was going on,
Yeah.
which I feel like you need that clarity. Because it's like my mom's like, I have an idea of what's going on, but she wouldn't tell me.
Yeah.
And because I don't know how this happened, but apparently I was watching this like YouTube channel who had a daughter who like the daughter had type 1 diabetes. So I kind of like an idea like, a little
Mhm.
bit of what was happening. But like so I'm like, do I have type 1 diabetes? Do I have diabetes? Like, do I? And my mom's like, I don't know. I think so, but I don't know.
Yeah.
I'm like, I guess she doesn't like she can't know. She's not a doctor.
Mhm.
And at this time, we really didn't have that much of contact with my uncle that much. So I was kind of freaking out. And mom's like, you might have this. Like, I don't want to say you do because you obviously might not. And I don't want to scare you. But from what I remember with my brother, this is going to go on. And I'm like freaking out. Like, I have no idea what's going on.
Yeah.
And
Were
it's
there
like
any lifestyle changes when you, like, got diagnosed? Like, initial?
just eating so much lower carb.
Mhm.
Like, I had like 30 carbs a meal.
That was
And
kind of similar to me too. Like, it
yeah,
was just, like, low carb foods.
yeah. And obviously, like, I gradually increased realizing, like, I can eat a little more carb food or whatever, but like, you just have to eat it in moderations or be careful. But nothing very much sticks out with me. Just, I never went anywhere near like jelly or maple syrup ever again after that. Of course, now we have like sugar-free maple syrup and sugar-free jelly, but even now I don't really eat that.
Mhm.
And just like after eating like sugar now, when you're eating like candy, like does it taste different?
Yeah.
Like what kind?
I don't know, like, I feel like when I eat candy when I'm low, it tastes different than if I eat it, like, to, like, enjoy it, because I feel like if you eat candy and you're low, it doesn't taste the same, if that makes sense.
Yeah, I get what you mean. It like tastes weird. It tastes like weird, and either way, you can't enjoy it.
Yeah. So, I don't know, like, a lot of candy I don't really like anymore.
Yeah, 'cause I remember I ate M&Ms one time over Halloween, and I just spat them out. I'm like, I don't like this.
Mhm.
And like even like before I signed up, I wasn't a huge chocolate person, but I did like M&Ms. Like I can handle like a little bag, and I had it like once in a while. But I was able to enjoy it, and now I'm like I cannot even like stand the taste of them in my mouth for a second.
No.
It's like
I
even
like
now if I'm low, I will try to avoid eating M&Ms at all costs.
Yeah. When I'm low, sometimes I feel like I'll do, like, outrageous things, and I'll, like, eat stuff that I know won't bring up my blood sugar quickly, but I just, like, enjoy it more. So
Yeah, I don't know why. Like when I'm low, I don't gravitate towards like eating candy first if like I don't have access to glucose to have the juice on me at that moment. My first and like initial thought is like cold fruit,
yeah.
like watermelon, cantaloupe, honeydew, like things like that. Like that is like my first thought. I'm like, get this, not that. And if I can't find that, or if I know we don't have anything I like in fruit, then I'll go for candy.
Yeah.
And then I'm like, right after that, I'm like, why did I eat this candy?
I go for fruit a lot of times too, like, even in the middle of the night when I'm, like, so tired, I'd rather go downstairs and get a bowl of fruit than, like, drink, like, I don't know, or, like, drink juice or eat candy. So, yeah. Thank you for listening to this episode of Type 1 Talk. Next week, we will be discussing coping and adjusting to living with type 1 diabetes.